about 3 o'clock. Go grab some Tex-Mex or something.
Perfect, perfect. So you're up from Houston?
Yeah.
Great. Well, it was quite an evening last night.
I know. I watched the film last night. I sat in most of the seminar you did this morning.
Oh, that was great.
I read the thing in the Austin Chronicle. I'm thinking, God, how am I going to ask this guy a question? He hasn't been asked 10 times in the last 2 weeks, you know?
Yeah.
But I'm going to try. Okay.
That's cool, that's cool.
Well, one of the things you mentioned, that you dropped out of a play, the Sam Shepard play, Curse of the Starving Class.
Uh-huh.
You literally walked.
I did. My first professional play was in 1979. It was January '79. I was the understudy, and Sam Shepard was so hot. I mean, I think he'd just been nominated for a Pulitzer or just won one, and God, he was in all these movies. And he was going out with Jessica Lange. He was the dude. And I was the understudy, and as it turns out, a week before the play opened, the understudy quit, and I had to open the play. This was my first professional play after studying in New York for a couple of years, and I was really nervous. I really beat myself up. And on the one hand, I had this great actor who was kind of a mentor to me, James Gammon.
Mm-hmm.
And on the other hand, there was this actress named Sally Kirkland who was just, worked from a very chaotic place and really made me nervous. To the point where one night, because there was a bad lighting cue, and this was just a little 100-seat waiver, she walked down to City Center and stopped the play. And after that, I was just like, I got to get out of here. I was too hard on myself. I think I've been too hard on myself a lot of times in my life. Seems like, as far as the critics go, I'm my toughest critic. I kind of laugh about some of the reviews I got, and I even quoted one there today.
That's interesting that you should do that. I mean, I interviewed Walter Matthau for I'm Not Rappaport, and he was quoting reviews from, the 60s and 70s. It's just like,
you only remember the bad ones, but it's, so for me to put James Gammon, when my wife read the script 4 years ago, and she said, you got to read this. I sat down to read it. The first thing I thought of, well, he was him and Luke Askew and Vincent Chase, who was my acting coach for the last 14 years. He played the Romney gypsy boss, the bald-headed kind of Sidney Greenstreet looking guy. Mm-hmm. And I gave him part. I saw all three of those guys in the movie when I first read it. And I finally, when I got the rights to do the movie, 4 years later, the first person I called was James Gammon. In a way, for me, we had this kind of unfinished business. I'd run away from this play, and I just was always kind of ashamed of that. And I always had such great respect, and I'd see Jim in movies, and occasionally I'd run into him. And he was excited to see I'd gotten back into it, because you get thrown off your horse a lot in this business, and it's the ones who get back on the horse. That's where you build your character and your experiences. And so I read this thing. I said, you got to read it. He read it. The part was just tailor-made for him. I think he gives an Academy Award performance as Double D.
He's great. He's great.
And
I've liked
his death
every movie
is so
that guy is
poignant.
in. I mean, what is that Kevin Costner film?
Revenge.
Revenge. Yeah, he's great in that.
Right in that. Just collecting myself here.
No, please eat and just don't pretend like I'm not.
Yeah, that's fine. No. Well, the only way we're going to get this movie across to the general public is if the tastemakers of papers like yourself and like some of the filmmakers who were there really get out and kind of stump for it. And I'm very visible with the film. If the movie could succeed, then it could open up a lot of things for me. And I believe in the film. And even if I go down swinging, I've got to feel like I gave it a fighting chance. I think the film can stand up on its own two legs. But you've got to get the word out. People have got to come. What was great, what was sad about One False Move was by the time it got so much critical acclaim, kind of across the board with critics around the country, it wasn't playing anywhere. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So I've got to try to get this groundswell happening before. We've been getting some really nice quotes. Donald Lyons, a film comment, loved the movie and described it as a great piece of Americana. And
this was the world premiere.
Today, yeah, last night. He saw it a long lead press screening.
And so you actually shot this film, what, at the beginning of '96?
We finished, actually late '95, and we finished late January of last year. And then I told you about how we had to go back in and remix all the music and do all that. Find a distributor. It's been a.
Well, that was a good choice, the music too, because when the film started out, of course, I thought it was Roger Miller until you hear, Randy has a very distinctive voice. So, but I'm a big Roger Miller fan. I mean,
I love Roger Miller, but that song, we thought, well, gosh, why not celebrate a new version of it? And it was a perfect song for Randy Travis. Just kind of was in his meter and his gait. And we thought it might be kind of fun. It's such a classic to kind of pay homage to it. It just seemed like the perfect, anthem for these people.
And I was totally unfamiliar about that this kind of crime ring existed. At first I figured it was just one family, but this is some big clan. I mean, it's a big conglomeration of
Well, there's
people.
several families, and usually each group is about, I don't know, I'd say like a dozen families in each group, not more than that. And they're mostly interrelated and stuff, and they all have the same name. A lot of times the authorities, if they bring these guys in to question them or anything, they're looking for Baki Sherlock or Pat O'Hara, and every guy at this table will go, well, I'm Pat O'Hara.
Mm-hmm.
Which Pat O'Hara? And many times, they pull people in, like that trailer scam is very famous. There are two companies. Actually, I want to make sure you get some press information.
Because I did get a press kit yesterday.
Oh, good.
And I got some color slides too.
You should do. It's actually what we're trying to get people, in the press to do is to. It's a great news story about the travelers, and readers will enjoy reading about these people. Going, God, this is a subculture that is alive and well and will always be around, as long as people want to get something for nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And as long as, there's marks out there, all scams are predicated on the mark's greed. That's the only way they can work. So usually these people are just very charming, and they just let the person they're scamming just rip them. They kind of take advantage of themselves. So it's a kind of, if we can get people out there, because that's one thing. That's why we put on the poster, swindlers, scammers, con men, ... as American as apple pie. That's kind of our log line.
But you also said this other catchphrase, the family that prays together stays together. That's great. I mean, I see that as like across the poster, it just says it all.
Well, I was worried that sounded too much like Near Dark.
Okay.
That kind of, it seemed like it'd be like more of a vampire movie or something.
Right, pray.
This is more like flim flam, bamboozle, hoodwink. Those are kind of the great adjectives. There's so many great adjectives. Gyp, the word gyp comes from gypsy. G-Y-P, gyp.
And the thing about the movie is it's not like anybody gets hurt until the very end. For the first 2 acts of the movie, everything is kind of light. Like the only possibility anybody has of getting hurt is within their own family,
Yeah, me and Mark, we start to.
At the end, when the guys follow Mark back to Juliana's house, the violence just erupted. It was really strong. I mean, it was like all of a sudden.
And they're taking out those 2 guys. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I mean, it was like, I mean, it was the same film, obviously, but the mood changed, and I knew that something was going to really be, either a major character is going to get killed or something really drastic is going to happen, and that was good, because again, it isn't this, big studio film where you kind of suspect what's going to happen from the very beginning. I mean, you don't know what's going on. I didn't know that, that these people really existed, and as you're led into their life, you really start to build up this sympathy for them. And
they were told a long time ago, you can't join the club. Fuck you, fuck your people. And so what did they do? I don't. Please, without the expletives.
Oh, please. I mean, our paper doesn't have a problem running.
Well, I don't like to come
Sure.
off that way, but I mean, basically, they were told to move on. Historically, they weren't allowed to assimilate with the general populace. They were kind of considered a pariah society, and so hey, it's their code, and they believe it, their soul, that the rest of us are fair game for them to work their trade and apply their wit and their skill and for their livelihood. We are put on this earth so they can get by. They believe that. And when you look at it historically and you see what these people have struggled through and where they came from, they're holding on to a tradition. And it's just, I guess in a way, if you think of it from their point of view, it's as valid as any other society or religion or cultural, beliefs. They just have held on to it. I mean, who says the family's dead? These people are alive and well. I think they don't dig in all the press they're starting to get. For years, there'd just be the occasionally news item about them, and they go way back. But now, with all these kind of, television news stories like 2020 and Dateline, and they're getting a little more exposure than they want. But again, there will always be people who will be out there just ripe for the picking. Most of the people that get ripped off by these people, they go, but God, he was such a genuine, God, he was such a nice guy. I gave him the job because I just liked him.
Well, in the first 5 minutes of the movie, I thought that, hey, you're you're just trying to pick up a few extra bucks. This is kind of establishing your character, happy-go-lucky guy. And, hey, I've got this load left. And so, obviously, when you see it start to rain and you see him kind of looking up, you go, oh, okay, I see,
Yeah, a shot of the rain washing the oil away was never as good as I would have liked to have it. But Jack did a great job. I was really smart to get him involved.
Now, he also shot the film?
Yes, and that was the trade-off. I thought, here I can have a studio cinematographer shooting our $5.5 million movie. And by giving him the opportunity to direct, hell, I knew he could direct. He's been working with Clint Eastwood for 20 years. Hell, I knew he could be good. I never looked through the camera. I don't think I ever looked through the camera once. And I'm aesthetically all over the place. My hands are very all over.
Oh, I thought it was important to have, I like the car sequences because they always had, a lot of times they had both characters' heads in the shot. It just seemed it seemed the camera was a little bit lower than, I guess the speed rail they put on the outside or something.
Yeah.
It seemed a little lower than the usual shot, which is kind of like even with the window, just looking straight through.
Yeah.
And, but I didn't realize he had shot it until they mentioned that in the seminar today. And I guess there were no hassles because he's a member of one union and he's also directing, or that because of the budget of the film.
I think because it was non-union that he was able to get around it. I think maybe technically he might not have taken 2 credits for that reason. I'm not sure. I'd have to ask Jack about that. But Clint Eastwood saw the movie and James Cameron saw the movie. They're kind of me and Jack's 2 mentors. And both we showed them rough cuts, and they gave us some editorial notes, which we used in the film. And it's been fun to get people kind of rooting for us, Billy Bob Thornton's seen the movie twice. He's really been very vocal in telling people about it. Both this movie and Sling Blade are kind of both the illegitimate children of One False Move. You might see Tom Epperson there today.
Right, yeah. The thing about One False Move, that film had, I can't think of a film I've ever seen in my entire life that had as violent a beginning.
Oh,
and
it's like that scene in Deer Hunter under that thing in the river, where they're in that cage thing. Come to Mao. It was just like, holy shit.
Yeah, but that was intense. I never turn away in films, and I see hundreds of films a year, so I know, I don't get scared when I go see, Silence of the Lambs or something. It's just like it's a movie.
Yeah.
But that was just like too real. The head with the pillowcase and the screwdriver. Because I asked Billy Bob Thornton about that, and because that's the thing that's.
A lot of people walked out of the theater.
Yeah, and in
it was
the first
sad
5
because
minutes.
that was the toughest part of the movie. Even the end scene doesn't even come near near to the violent impact that opening scene has. Our film changes gears, and people, some of the long lead press screening, they've been kind of thrown off by that. They think that we blew it at the very end and all that stuff. But again, I'll stand by this. I just feel like we've taken this audience on this kind of free ride into this world of this underworld of these very nefarious scam artists and con men, and these people you know, they rip people off, and it's like, I think, you know, it really is what comes around comes around, and I just felt like they needed for these characters, for Pat to go off with Boss Jack at the end, and for me to be able to leave the family. I talked to Jim McGlynn, the writer, at great length about this. I just felt like the ending was kind of too soft for the picture, and I thought, you know, I described the movie as kind of Southern Gothic, and it has kind of a Flannery O'Connor, you know, it's a Flannery O'Connor world of the kind of characters that kind of, you know, landscape her novels and stuff. And I mean, even in a movie like a book, I mean, a short story like A Good Man Is Hard to Find.
Right.
You know, in that last scene, he takes those people out in the woods, and you know, and there's a gothicness to it. There is something kind of dark to all this, and I just felt like I wanted to put the audience through this kind of a baptism too, and the idea that not only was Baki gonna, you know, from the beginning, from the second scene of the movie, he keeps saying no to James Gammon's character. He knows what the guy's promoting, and he says, I don't want any part of it. There's even a scene where I even tell the audience, I tell him, I say, you mess with those people, you get your throat slit. And we even tell them that what's going to happen to the guy. So my character knows, he knows the danger of getting in over his head. They're into real quick nickel and dime stuff. Nobody gets hurt. Just keep on moving. You know, that money starts to build up off those trailers and driveways. All of a sudden, you can make some good jack doing that. And to try to go for the big score, the travelers aren't into that. So that's, my character just keeps pushing, you know, going, hey man. And see, Double D's character is like a renegade traveler. I'm suspect for him because any traveler who's not connected to a family, who's obviously was ostracized or whatever, and obviously Double D's a character. I think it's a very interesting character because the audience just so dearly want to love this character and really believe that he's even though he's a scam artist, he'll be loyal to the people he's loyal to. And then that great scene where he starts laughing and we're all kind of looking at him, and Mark's like, and I can't believe I got pulled into this thing, but I just thought, you know, the idea that not only is this guy going to get himself hurt, he's going to get innocent people hurt. But I also wanted to pull Juliana's character into it, so we actually added the scene where we're playing Monopoly, and she's kind of celebrating the ill-gotten gains. So she's not completely innocent. The little girl is completely innocent.
Sure.
And I just thought it just needed this atonement. So we kind of went for this Dos Ex Machinos kind of ending. I don't want to give that away, but just in talking to you about it. You know, in the old days, you know, during the Greeks and stuff, a lot of times, you know, Zeus would have to come down at the end and just vanquish the evildoers and restore order with the decent people, and then go back up on Mount Olympus.
Well, but you saw their reaction because they asked Mark, where are you going? And I forget what he says, but something to the effect of, I'm just going, you know, it's my business. And he and the other guy, Luke and that other guy, look at each other. So you knew that they were thinking, okay, let's go. And then when he comes back into the hotel room, in that other scene, you had walked into the hotel room.
Exactly the same scene.
Right, it was the foreboding of that. So
Yeah,
you knew he was dead under the
Oh,
covers.
yeah. There was a scene we took out that actually Clint, there were two things that Clint saw. We had a scene where, you know, he keeps coming back to the door, Mark, and he goes, get the fuck out of here. And then there's one more knock on the door. And he opens the door, and there they are standing there. And I thought, you know what? That's like the old thing. Well, do you show the banana peel, and then have the person step on it and fall down, or do you just have the person fall down, and then you see the banana peel? So, and Clint thought we'd done ourselves a disservice by tipping that, you know. And in a way, it's nice to end on that moment where the last time you see him alive is looking at that adult entertainment card on there, and you know, I got a big little reaction too.
Well, then there's the do not disturb sign, so he figures in there whacking off.
Yeah, exactly.
Like it was almost like he was going to walk in and he's going to be half naked or something.
Yeah.
Hey, I need some privacy.
Yeah, and the other thing was when Luke looks at one of his henchmen, Luke Askew's boss Jack, and as Mark gets his car and drive away after he's dropped off the money. We had a scene where Luke just kind of went, you know, and that was too much. Clint thought, we showed that to Clint, he thought, you know, you can't do that. And he was right, And so we took a chance that people have to kind of go back and go, wait a minute, well, how did they get there? But again, it was kind of keeping it in the family, and I couldn't have the protagonist, I couldn't turn the tables or anything like that. That's why I wanted to kind of that moment where kind of hope dies just for a moment there. You see me, like, knock the guy, but hell, I'm tied up, I can't do anything. And so I just close my eyes, I'm gonna get shot. I played my hand.
Right, at that, I think
The whole dog shit speech is kind of wild. I mean, it's really kind of, it was great because people were laughing, but it was that kind of nervous kind of laughing. And I would have liked, if I had more time to develop it, maybe brought back the can some way. So that scene kind of pays itself off. But I like the whole, the Romney Gypsies have a whole thing about uncleanness and marmee that. And they're very strange with their women. Their women are on their period. And they have to stay out of the house and all this weird stuff.
Really?
It's really weird.
Bizarre.
Very weird
Must
culture.
go back hundreds of years.
Oh, yeah, it's real intense, and basically the women do all, I shouldn't say this, but in the Romney gypsy gangs, it's usually the women who do all the fortune-telling scams and all that, and the men really don't do much. They make their women work, pretty much. But, so, you know, it was fun figuring out how to put all this together, but it's great when Mark says, do you remember I was telling you how these guys eat dog shit? And I mean, the people are going to be thinking, what is this movie? I mean, maybe we'll back off of this too, but I think it's great when Mark's like, yeah, you know, everybody was like getting into that. But I just wanted a tougher ending. I felt like the movie was kind of a piece of Southern Gothic Americana.
No, that ending was perfect for it. I mean, it really kind of, I thought, brought together everything. I mean, you know, because you realize that there is a price to pay. I mean, at one point, you and Juliana are like, you're going to achieve the American dream. I mean, sure, you had to kind of get the money through illegal means, but you were getting it, like you said, the guy we're getting it from aren't even human.
I love it. She goes, I don't want you out there ripping people off. This guy ate people.
Yeah.
I thought the script jumped out at me. The dialogue that Jim wrote was fantastic. We didn't really change much of that. He would do polishes for us, but I mean, the original script had the great lines like, you know, maybe we make a new deal, and then I slammed the thing of, that's my underwear, bub. And just, I love Jim Gammon's voice and Luke Askew's voice, and when Jim Gammon says something, I'm talking about deep water here, and I'm not about to go jumping in unless I know you can swim. And then he says, you know, he goes, this is my play, and I'm going to work my thing my way. Now give it up. I just loved that kind of dialogue. To me, the movie has a little bit of a Five Easy Pieces kind of feel to it. It really is a throwback because of Jack Green's sensibilities and the script. It's kind of a throwback to kind of set movies from the early 70s.
Yeah, exactly.
Quentin Tarantino, he loves that period of filmmaking, and it's been reflected in his work, really responded to the movie. It was funny, he knew every one of Luke Askew's credits. Luke was in a lot of biker movies, and a lot of westerns.
Well, he's an Easy Rider, right? That's where I remember.
Cool Hand Luke, Easy Rider, Culpeper Cattle Company, Pat Garrett, and Billy the Kid. I've been on kind of a single-handed campaign to revive that career. He's such an American treasure, just one of the great American film actors. And a lot of people don't even, they remember him when they see him, but they don't. Like Quentin said, God, I didn't know that guy was still around. I'm doing a Western. I got to call Luke. I go, man, you got to call Luke. I said, you just have fun having him on the set, talking about Sam Peckinpah and stuff. Luke, I learned a great lesson from, and some of these guys he's been a great craftsman and artist for an actor for a long time, and he's just boiled it down to kind of this path, and he's like a guy who just sees how minimally he can be, and he really, and it just blows you away when you see that kind of work. It's just so clean and so low key, but it comes through. It just burns white hot. And I've just had a career of doing wild character parts and all kinds of stuff. And for me, I'm trying to get to that place where I can kind of achieve more with less. And from Baki, the character of Baki I play in Traveling, it's an iconic character for me. And that and One False Move. And I'd like to do maybe a couple more of these kind of, then I'll have my box set, Here's my box set.
Well, also the woman who played his wife, Lou's wife, Joanne Fluke, right? She was the nurse in
That was a major score. You're only the second person. who's
Well, she only had, I think, 1 or 2 lines, but
unfortunately, I met her on a plane going down to Atlanta to change planes to go to Wilmington. She'd just been in LA for some big AFI reunion of MASH. I guess it was the 25th or, yeah, 25th anniversary or 20th anniversary.
72, sounds about right.
Yeah, exactly, 25th anniversary. And so I met her on this plane, we started talking. She's such a striking woman. I mean, when she was, she's such a striking woman. She's an older, well, no, she's not that old, but she's a mature woman.
Mm-hmm.
But she's just incredibly looking. We started talking, I just knew her. And then she mentioned she'd been back to this thing, and I realized, oh my God, it's the woman from MASH. And I said, come up and be in my film. I don't really have much to offer, but just come up and be in the movie. That's how I got recruited people. And we found this great gal who plays her daughter in the movie, Luke and Joanna's daughter, named Nikki Deloche from Waycross, Georgia. She was 16 years old when we made the movie. I mean, it was a lot of fun finding Shane. Danielle Weiner played Juliana's daughter. She's actually half Peruvian. Her mom's from Peru and her dad's.
I almost thought, I mean, when I first saw her, I thought, I wonder if that's her actual daughter or
Yeah,
like a
was great.
sister or something, because
Yeah.
they really do look alike.
Yeah, it was great. Well, they both.
It's always hard to match those particular characteristics
Well,
of
also,
people.
that they both had a similar kind of wariness of people. They just have a real kind of blunt stare. Both of them kind of have that. I mean, when they in their characterization, and they spent some time together. And Juliana would they'd play games and hang out together. And they kind of connected, so that when they were on screen together, they were great. What else can I talk about?
But, the reason I like movies like this, I mean, it sort of shows that, hey, I mean, we all know that movies, the average movie budget is $60 million, and this kind of shows the real mettle of an actor or a producer or a director saying, hey, this is what I'm really all about, and if you really dig me, then check this out.
That's what I did. Why I did this movie. We will see how much they dig me if they come and see it. But after Twister, like I said at the seminar, I knew what the reviews were going to be. And it was great. I mean, it gave me the power to be able to raise the money politically to make Traveler. And I got offered some big paydays. But I thought, do I take the money now? All these years I haven't taken the money. I've just always tried to, build my career strategically and just stay in features and try to do good work, try to be in films that I believe in. And that's not always possible. Sometimes you need the money, but I didn't really need the money, and I had been sitting on this script for a while, and I had to buy it out from the other people who owned it. They tried to hold on to it, and I initially tried to go out with Rick King, who was attached as director. He'd done a great little independent film a few years ago called Hard Choices. And in the interim, he'd had to take some lesser jobs doing some of these Philippine, I don't know if they're Roger Corman movies or, Philippine exploitation movies. He hurt himself politically. I was having a hard time around town before we got financed to convince somebody to give this guy the money to make this movie with me. And so he was nice enough and been able to step back down, him and Robert Michelson as producers. The thing very quickly, when we started meeting small companies, there were some small companies we met to finance the film. I had too many producers. They wanted Jack, and I said, by then I decided I either make this movie with Jack Green or I don't make the movie. And we had to take real hard lines all the way along because it wasn't this train that started, Jack described me that way. Well, that's what it was. This train had to keep going down the track. And we couldn't stop, and we would lose people. I told you I lost I actually lost both my co-leads very early on, but not much time. And I was just so glad that Juliana wanted to do it, and Mark Wahlberg. But Jack, hell, I'm losing my train of thought here. What the hell was I talking about? What was I going off on?
Let's see. Well, you were kind of like how you and Jack, you using the metaphor of a train, I mean, you know, you have to
We
get
just
to
had
the
to get going.
destination.
We were going to get to the destination. Once we got rolling, Jack was incredible. His pre-production and his production skills are just second to none. He can really command. You know, he's a great leader. He's a benevolent leader. He creates a great esprit de corps. And God, the crews just loved him. And we just marched. He just marched us through this thing with not a lot of fanfare. And he would do beautiful lighting, but he wouldn't. You know, he'd take the time to shoot the scene too. I never felt rushed when I was shooting a scene, except in the first couple of days we had an AD that was trying to run the show, and I didn't need him to do it. Jack was running the show, and I just didn't need somebody stepping on my neck or the crew's neck. And this guy I don't know, he was a control freak. And after 3 days of filming on the weekend, I called Jack. I said, Jack, I can't have that man on set. So we moved the second AD up to first AD, and next Monday was our second week. We were going into the whole funeral and the whole traveler camp, which were our biggest scenes in terms of logistics and location and, you know, extras and all that, costumes. And man, we picked it up without a hitch. We just blew on through, and every department head came up to me and thanked me. So they were professionals. They didn't need somebody driving them. You know?
Mm-hmm.
I didn't want that on my movie. The other thing is, you know, the whole idea of approaching Juliana to do, you know, can you do a nude scene, you know, and all that. It'll help the foreign buyers and all that. I just couldn't bring myself to do that. We wanted to find ways to titillate the audience and also to kind of share in the joy of people who are falling in love physically and mentally, and wanted to show that you know, it's not just all about the sex. Yeah, that's a big part of it, the anticipation and falling into bed and tearing the clothes off and all and just the passion is there. But I wanted to show that these were two people who were becoming friends. They had a sense of humor together, and they were kind of like two lost souls who kind of found each other, and they kind of made this thing. And my character's a very gothic character in the piece. He's carrying around a dead wife and a dead baby in his memory, and a sick grandmother, and he really, you know, he's a traveler, but you know, he knows he's the heir apparent, but he's not really comfortable with that. And it was tough because I had to be charming and winning when I'm pulling my scams and stuff, but also I couldn't be totally happy-go-lucky. And so it was fun to play the maturity of the character.
Well, yeah, and another thing is that, I mean, I like the way that it didn't always telegraph things, certain relations to the audience. I mean, for instance, when you go over to Juliana's apartment after having ripped her off, I mean, it's obvious, you know, she's really attractive. I mean, you know, I'm really sorry. I mean, you know,